Live.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dave Schade. I'm the Director of your Alaska Division Agriculture. So welcome to another Facebook Live program we do. With all the holidays and things, we missed a few. Really appreciate that we have a loyal listenership kind of thing. It's kind of really cool to see that our numbers are going well. And I was just talking with NRCS folks here a little earlier. And we've been talking about how this is a great thing to make sure we get out the word of all the different programs. So with that, today, I'm really thrilled to have Jackie Kragel back, program specialist with the NRCS program. You're here in Palmer, right?
I am. Yep, I'm located up here in Palmer.
And so she's going to give us a little presentation on conservation easements and things like that. So Jackie, why don't you go ahead and you can give yourself a little better introduction and your background, and then it looks like a great presentation. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, David. Like you mentioned, my name is Jackie Kragel. I work in the Palmer State Office here in Alaska. We have several state offices or field offices throughout the state, and those local field offices are able to support you at a more local and minute level for any of your conservation needs. And here at the state office, we support field offices and also you as the public in a greater sense. I've been in Alaska now for about a year and a half, and so I feel like I'm still a fresh face to the public and to the industry, and so I'm super excited to get to share this program that we have offered through the Natural Resource Conservation Service. With that, I'm going to share my screen here. And here we go. All right, so the topic for today for the Natural Resource Conservation Service is going to be based around a program that we have called the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program. A little bit more about Alaska and NRCS in general is we do provide custom conservation plans. As mentioned previously, we have the local field offices that are more directly support to you as a local producer. Those
Jackie, sorry to
locations-
jump in and interrupt you, but that screen isn't coming through just yet.
Oh, okay. Let's see. What do you see? Just my face?
Just your lovely face.
Okay, let's try this again, maybe. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so as mentioned, our local field office locations are in Fairbanks, Delta Junction, Wasilla, Juneau, Kenai, Palmer, and Kodiak. So if you have any specific questions after this presentation, feel free to reach out to your local field office. That information will also be provided at the end of the presentation, along with my own information. The NRCS also, and more knownly note, is for our technical assistance and our financial assistance, both of which are strictly voluntary. So speaking of financial assistance, that's why we're all listening today, is to cover a little bit more in depth of our Agriculture Conservation Easement Program. This program provides both financial and technical assistance. There's two components to it, but essentially this program is to conserve agriculture and ranch lands and to restore, protect wetlands historically impacted by agriculture. So since this is a financial assistance program through the NRCS, we do have application deadlines. We do accept applications all year round, but we do, in order to keep things kind of on track, have different batching dates. So for this specific program, our deadline is January 14th of 2022. At the end, I'll discuss briefly what that requirement would be if someone is interested in meeting that deadline for an application for this program. But to dive into it a little bit further, As mentioned previously, within what we call ASEP, the Agriculture Conservation Easement Program, I'll be calling it ASEP now just because that's a mouthful. Our first of two is an agriculture land easement. So this type of easement is to work with producers, whether you're in agriculture status or you may have grazing on your property, grazing in your forest lands. And for agriculture here in Alaska, it's a great opportunity for us as we are able and willing to accept subsistence harvesting. So berry gathering, hunting, fishing is a form of agriculture here in the state. And so though we have not yet processed a subsistence application yet, we do have the green light from those above us to go ahead and start processing those. So whether your agriculture is gathering berries, hay, vegetables, whatever your type of agriculture is, reach out to us. We'll double check to make sure it's an eligible type, and then we'll move forward. But essentially, it's to protect agriculture use here in this great state. There's developmental pressures all around us, whether it's for housing or new infrastructure. And so this easement really helps to protect and lock in those agriculture land acres, just to make it more sustainable for food security in the future, especially here in Alaska. That's something that we really pride ourselves on as local agriculture food sources in the markets. A little bit of the costs, which is always something everyone wants to know a little bit more on, is for this easement. We, the NRCS, contribute 50% of the fair market value of an Agland easement. You will work with a land trust who will contribute the other 50%. That land trust will also contribute any other costs associated with acquiring an easement, such as recording, surveys, appraisal fees, title insurance, and closing costs. So though you work with NRCS, you're also going to be working with a land trust. We have a list of those available on our websites, or just get in touch with one of us at the local field office or here in the state office, and we can provide a list of land trusts if this is something that interests you. We have several that we've worked with in the past, but there is still a handful that we're capable of working with to fit your needs and your location. Again, this is to help farmers and ranchers protect their agriculture, their grazing rights, and this is a permanent easement on the land. So don't fret when it's permanent. You as a landowner still reserve all your rights. As a landowner, the only thing we are purchasing from you is developmental rights, so housing, infrastructure, things of that nature. Whereas on the other hand, we have our second option, the Wetland Reserve Easement. So with this option, it's a little bit different, not only topographically and land use wise, but also the landowner works directly with the NRCS and only with the NRCS. There's no land trust involved in this transaction. The NRCS, dependent upon the length of easement, is how the breakdown of costs is involved. So of course, we are always going to strive for a permanent easement. With a permanent easement, the landowner is going to receive from the NRCS 100% easement value plus 75 to 100% of the restoration costs. The more you break down away from a permanent easement, so the next one is like 30-year easement, then you're going to reduce your value that the NRCS will provide you and your restoration costs. And that just makes sense. You know, if we are investing into this restoration, protection, and enhancement of a wetland, we are going to be putting our money where it's most beneficial to us as the NRCS, and that is a permanent easement. However, we do have a 30-year easement available, and then a 30-year contract is a little bit different of a vignette. However, that is only available to Indian tribes. So if you fall in that category, reach out to the NRCS and we'll divulge the specifics of that financial breakdown a little bit better for you. And again, any costs associated with recording, surveys, appraisal fees, title insurance, and closing costs is all on the burden of the NRCS. The landowner does not have any of those responsibilities. With this, again, the land use type is specifically targeted towards a wetland. So if you're unsure if you have a wetland on your property, but you do know that maybe it's a wet marshy area, or maybe it is currently in agriculture, like vegetable production, or you've been haying it or grazing it for some years, and you just notice that it's pools water a lot more frequently, or you're noticing migratory birds on it, etc. Or if it's even in a riparian area, there's different ways that we can look at this and determine whether this is an eligible wetland for restoration, enhancement, and protection. So the big kicker is what easements do and do not do. So I'd like to emphasize that easements do not take over land or private ownership at all. These are all voluntary. So for an Agland easement, like I mentioned, you're just agreeing to limit non-agriculture use. And that again is allowing for subdivisions and infrastructure building, things of that nature. So the intent for an Agland easement is to keep it in agriculture production. You'll work with the NRCS on establishing your, or more likely documenting your current farm and agriculture methods. And as long as there's no intolerable soil loss or water quality issues, you'll be able to maintain your grazing and your agriculture production as you have in the past. This does not cause landowners to lose access to their land. You are still the landowner, you still hold all your rights. You can sell it whenever you choose to sell it. You can allow hunting, not allow hunting. It's all up to you. With a wetland reserve easement, it's a little bit different. We're going into it with the intent to protect, restore, and enhance a wetland. So for that, we just try to limit any structural practices or activity on the parcel of land. We can still hike and fish and hunt, and it's still up to you as a landowner to decide who does those practices on your property. If you just wish it to be you and your family, that's great. If you wish it to have some public interaction on it, that's great too, but it's totally your decision. And again, to mention for another financial component to this is easements do not shift a tax burden to the public. So taxes are still paid for and due by the landowner. It will be adjusted slightly due to an easement being on the property. So your taxes should be less than original. But it's important to note that the tax burden is not shifted to the public. Some additional resources for you. So if you're viewing on a phone, this might be important to screenshot this information. The first one here is our ASEP webpage, Agriculture Conservation Easement Program, which those two that we just discussed fall under. It's going to have a lot of great resources for you. It's going to have some of our application forms. Our public relations department has put together great fact sheets. The second link is going to be a link to all your local field offices and their contact information. So phone numbers, and I think there's email addresses on there as well. Our Alaska NRCS homepage, which offers a plethora of information. So not only this financial assistance program information, but it offers all of our other financial and technical information and other contact information. And lastly, at the bottom is my contact information. If you have any questions regarding anything in this presentation, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, the deadline for application is January 14th. So that's coming up really quickly, especially with the holiday season on us. For applications. So if you are interested in an ag land easement or a wetland reserves easement, or you're curious if you even are eligible, a lot of what is on our first link there, the webpage, it's going to have a lot of the forms, eligibility criteria. But essentially for an Agland easement, what you will need is to have your land trust fill out an application, submit it, and they'll also submit a parcel sheet for you. So you may be involved in the filling out of those forms, but essentially that land trust is going to be the one that fills them out and submits it upon your behalf. And then for a wetland reserves easement, there's just an application that you fill out with your local field office, and you submit that to them or myself, and then we'll work with you directly with any other eligibility items that you may have. And with that, I'm open to any questions, comments that you may have. And I might try to get fancy here in the slideshow. See if we can.
So do we have any questions, John?
Yes, actually, we have one good one here. What is the smallest size land parcel that an easement can be placed?
That's a great question, especially up here in Alaska. Our agriculture and land parcel sizes are so much smaller than the rest of the lower 48. We don't have a minimum, actually. So what will determine the success of that application or potential easement will be how much funding is available within the state and how much more robust your application is versus your neighbor. So if we have multiple applications, we will rank them and assess them and determine what application with the dollars set aside that we have is the best opportunity for the federal government to spend taxpayer dollars in conserving and placing an easement on property. So again, there's no minimum, but it is always better to have something a little bit more competitive than the person next to you.
So it's, I'll ask the question. So you said you got a January deadline, but it seems that you'd be wanting to work with people in the summer months so you could get staff out and do things when there's not a snow cover. So, what is it any time of the year, or, when should people get started on this if they can't make the current deadline?
It's a great question. We have some folks that are interested currently, and we've worked with them in the previous months. During the application phase, getting on the property is an absolute must. Technology and GIS mapping is so far beyond anything. We can really collect a lot of information that way. So just to get your application in, an on-foot farm visit isn't absolutely necessary, though it is helpful to fill out the forms. But that's something that we work throughout the fiscal year to complete the entire package. It is always nice to go out there during those summer months, and even yourself as a landowner, that's generally when you start to think about things like this, whether there's other conservation needs on your property, you generally notice it while you're out there walking and working the property yourselves. Like I mentioned before, we do accept applications year round. It's just we have one or two deadlines a year, and this year there's one deadline for applications for that fiscal year.
So it's an ongoing program. I think it's important for people to note, but if they're wanting to get in this year's game, time's up.
It's almost time's up. That's right.
January, right?
January 14th. And if you are interested, still reach out. We don't need to have an application this year. We don't have quotas or anything like that we meet here at the federal level. And so we can start working with you tomorrow if you want to put an application in for the next year. If you're not ready, or you have a lot of reservations, or maybe you need to work and find out with your land trust if you're on the Agland easement route. But even if you're not ready by the 14th deadline, still reach out to us and we'll work with you for the next fiscal year.
So do you have any idea of how many acres are in this program in Alaska?
Right, we don't have as much as you would hope. We have several hundred in the Agland easements. We have had several other easement programs throughout the farm bills. So every farm bill, we get different program changes, as most of you are fairly aware of. So programs come and go, they get called different things. And so we don't necessarily have a wetland reserves easement yet. However, we do have some that look similar to a wetland reserves easement, but we don't have any of those yet. We have a couple floodplain easements that used to be offered, or grazed land reserve protection easements that are no longer offered. So we have a lot of different pieces here and there, but in total several hundred.
So great. This is a great presentation. It's always, we really, really appreciate you guys coming on and letting everybody know the availability. And I really want to stress, NRCS is there around the state. You folks are there, and people need to reach out and just say hi sometimes. But let them know, folks, they need to know you're farming, and it'd be good for you to know, and there's services they can provide. And it's not all programmatic. Sometimes they've got expertise that can help you and point you in the right direction. So we're really proud of all of you over at NRCS and our USDA friends that we work with all the time here at the division. So that's good. John, do we have any other questions?
We sure do. We've got two more.
Okay.
The first one is, must the property be farmed forever?
No, I imagine they're asking about an ag land easement. I'm just gonna assume that's within an ag conservation easement program. They're probably discussing an ag land easement. So it does not need to be farmed forever. It just needs to hold, an easement will hold the rights of non-development for forever. We have a lot of different other programs with the NRCS. And so something that I've seen in the lower 48 is, so let's say you have an ag land easement right now. In 5 years, you're looking at retirement. Things are going a little slower, maybe crop prices are lowering. We can always work with you to have grazing on the property if that's something that interests you. And we also have a conservation, another financial and technical assistance program. It's called the Conservation Reserves Program, and it puts crop production back into native vegetation. And that's something that is eligible on an ag land easement. So there's a few different options if you're looking to retire your crop piece, or your ag land, or your grazing, pastures, range, all those things. If you're looking for retirement or a break. But as long as there's no infrastructure or buildings, things of that nature that will impact and violate the easement, we're open.
Great, thank you. All right, I have one more question. Is this only for property you already own, or can you use apply to use this while purchasing a property? Sorry, that's I think there's a couple typos in there, but
That's okay.
Or can use or apply to use this while purchasing a property?
I got the gist of that one. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, if you're targeting an ag land easement. No, if you're targeting a wetland reserves easement. And the reason why there's a difference right now, it might change in the next farm bill, but looking at it for right now, an ag land easement, remember you're going to be working with a land trust. So that land trust will be holding the easement instead of the NRCS. That land trust has a couple different types of ways they can acquire the easement of the property. They can acquire it from a landowner that already owns the property, or they can acquire it by purchasing the property themselves, and then within 3 years, they can then relinquish or return the property over to a landowner. So the landowner themselves wouldn't necessarily be able to use this money to purchase the property, but working with their land trust, the land trust would have the opportunity to purchase the property and then sell it essentially to the landowner of interest. So that's kind of a lot to take in, but if they have specific questions further than that, feel free to reach out to me and I can help explain it further. And that's new with this new 18 farm bill. And of course, we'll be getting our new farm bill, in a couple more years. So things are going to change, but as of right now, that's about the only way you could do it if you don't right now own the property.
Great explanation. One last question, John, if we have one.
Nope, I think that about wraps it up.
Well, great, Jackie, that was fantastic presentation. You do a great job as always. We really
Thank you.
went on so much. I shut myself off there for purposes for a little while, so I did watch all of this. Great job. I just want to let everybody know, John and I will be up in Fairbanks next week. We're going to be presenting the $5 challenge winner to the roaming writ seller. We actually had a winner of our $5 challenge that is not in the Matsu Valley and a small business. So we were really thrilled with that. So we're going to go up and do a presentation. We'll do our Facebook Live from there. So again, Jackie, I always let the guest have the last word. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.